Hey leaders, in this episode, I'm going to give you 5 keys for connecting without using words. Come on, let's get into it. All right, in this episode, we're going to be talking about connecting without using words. You know, they say that only 20% of what people hear actually comes from the words. 80% of what they hear is what they observe or what they see through non-verbal communication. So it's absolutely essential that you know how to communicate and connect with others without your words, or to go beyond your words to make sure that your message is getting through. Now, before I get into these tips, I want to remind you to subscribe or follow if you don't already do so. We produce this content every week and we don't want you to miss a single episode. And make sure you share it with somebody who you think will enjoy it and get the most out of what we're producing. Okay, 5 keys to connecting without words. I wonder if you've ever heard the expression, actions speak louder than words. You know, human beings are wired, the brain is wired primarily for sight. And the main way we collect data is through our eyes. And so it's reasonable to think or to understand that when we communicate with other people, a lot of what we understand about what they're saying and a lot about what we understand about them as a person comes through what we observe, not by what we hear. You know, other animals like, say, dogs, for example, have very keen hearing, but human beings don't have great hearing. We have great eyesight, and so that's where the bulk of your communication needs to be focused on. How do you get the most amount of information for connecting and communicating without using your words? And the first tip is this: you need to eliminate distractions. We live in a world that is so distracted, more distracted than we've ever been in history. And you know, you don't have to go very far to see people with one of these out and staring at it. You know, I was in a restaurant the other day with my family, and it was kind of amusing because I looked at my own table and all my kids were on their phone, and then I looked at the next table and everybody was on their phone, and I looked at the next table and everybody was at their phone. You know, it seems like everywhere you go now, people are walking with their head down staring at their phone, and it's really easy to be distracted when you're in a conversation or you're trying to connect with somebody if you pay too much attention to your phone. If your phone dings or a message comes through while you're talking to somebody, don't answer it. Don't pick it up. Don't even flip it over and just check to see who it is, because if connecting is really important to you, then what you will find is that every time you get distracted, every time you lose attention, you're actually losing the person that you're trying to connect with. So you need to eliminate distractions. If you're trying to have a meeting, try and do it in an environment where there's less distractions. You know, if you go to a sports bar and there's TVs everywhere and there's noise everywhere, well, that's not a great place to meet someone who you're trying to connect with. But if you go to a quiet cafe where there's less distractions, then you'll find that you can actually communicate more effectively. So be aware of distractions, eliminate them as much as possible when you are trying to build relationship and connection with people. The second thing is this: you need to, and it's kind of tied to the first one, is you need to maintain eye contact. I don't know if you've ever talked with somebody who tends to look around the room. They look everywhere except the person they're talking to. It can be really off-putting, and it certainly breaks connection if you're trying to build that rapport and trust with another person. And so just be really mindful that when you're talking to somebody that you maintain eye contact with them. Now, sometimes it can be a little bit strange just staring at them directly on their eyeball. So I usually just stare at a spot just in between their eyes, and that makes it look like you're looking at them and you're getting that connection. But what you don't want to be doing is just looking around the room and, you know, looking at the TV in the background or looking at somebody who just walked past. You know, you've got to really try to maintain that connection, and that can be hard in a crowded room. If you're in a networking event or you see somebody who walk in that you know, it can be really hard to maintain that focus. But I'll tell you what, if you can maintain that focus, that will really help you to build connection, because the other person will notice and they will appreciate you for that. So the first one was eliminate distractions, and the second one is maintain eye contact. The third thing is you need to learn to be expressive. So when you're talking, when you're communicating, use your full range of facial expressions. You know, you don't have to have just one face You've probably heard of the resting you-know-what face. That face you have when you're really deep in thought. You don't want to have a stern face all the time, or, maybe you have a face that looks a little bit like a deer in the headlights. Whatever it might be, just try to use your eyes and use your mouth and use your smile to express what you're saying. You can also use your hands. I mean, you've probably noticed I use my hands a lot when I talk, and that just helps to emphasize or helps to bring the person into what you're saying. Just a little tip about using hands is don't wave them around too much in front of you, because that can be off-putting because it gets into their personal space. So you probably notice when I talk, I keep my hands fairly close to me when I'm using gestures rather than reaching out in front of me, because that can become a barrier. So be expressive, use your facial expressions, smile, use your eyes, use your eyebrows, use your hands, and you will find that helps you to communicate, it helps you to build rapport and connection with another person. The fourth thing is you need to observe the person who you're opposite. Take notice of their body language. Be observant about how they're standing. Even if they're standing, if they're sitting, you sit. If they stand, you stand. Don't try and have a conversation with somebody who is in a different position to you. It's very hard to have a conversation with somebody if you're sitting down and they're standing up. And so you need to try and mirror, if you like, the person that is opposite to you. Try to, if they lean in, you lean in. If they lean back a bit relaxed, then you lean back a little bit relaxed. And so try to mirror, but don't make it too obvious. You don't want to do it like the minute they change their hand movement, you do the same thing. I mean, that's just going to look silly. But just very subtly, just be observant of your counterpart and try to mirror what they're doing. What happens in their brain is their brain says, this person is like me, I can trust them. And that's what your brain's really doing all the time when you meet a new person. It's looking for points of connection where it says, yeah, this person is like me, I can trust them. And so if you are being observant about the way that they are holding their body posture, the way that they're talking, the way that the tone of their voice, how quiet they're talking, and you try to mirror very subtly what they're doing, what you will find is that will build connection and rapport with the other person very well. And the fifth one really is tied to that, is you need to also watch your own body language. Make sure you're not giving off body language that is creating a barrier towards the other person or seems overly aggressive. So things like crossing your hands while you're talking to somebody, unless it's a situation where you can read it really well, like let's say the other person's crossing their hands and you can tell that they're very relaxed, they're just standing there because they're relaxed. You don't want to cross your hands, because crossing your hands creates this sort of I don't want to talk to you type aggressive stance. Be mindful of your height. If you're taller than other people, try to bring your height down so that they don't feel like you're standing over them. One of the things I do is I spread my legs a little bit wider so that it brings my height down, so I'm not, if I'm talking to somebody who's shorter than me, I'm not looking down on them or intimidating them. Try not to get into people's personal space unnecessarily. Keep a nice distance. You don't want to be so far away that you're aloof, but at the same time, you don't want to be so close that it feels awkward or weird. Also be mindful of your hands. I mentioned them before. You don't want to have fists or point too much, because all of that is sort of aggressive traits that may be off-putting. So just be mindful of your own body language and how you're carrying yourself so that you don't inadvertently communicate a sense of hostility or a sense of barrier or blockage between you and the other person. So that's 5 things that I think you need to learn how to do or be observant of when you're trying to connect with people without words. It's very, very important. If you want to get through to people beyond what you say and you want them to know, like, and trust you, you need to learn how to communicate non-verbally. So just as a recap, eliminate distractions. Put your phone away. Don't get distracted by what's around you. Pick a quiet environment to meet with people. The second one is be expressive. Use your smile, use your eyes, use your hands, and be expressive. The third thing is to maintain eye contact. I think I got them mixed up. That was the second thing. But maintain eye contact and make sure you don't let your eyes wander, and just look at the person that you're talking to. The fourth thing is be observant of your opposite. Look at their body language, look at their posture, and try to very subtly mimic or mirror their posture so that they feel comfortable with you and they feel like you are on their wavelength. And the last one is, fifth one, is to mind your body language. Don't use body language that is overly aggressive or confrontational or creates a barrier between you and the other person. If you can follow these 5 tips and practice them well, you're going to be well on your way to connecting with others and having them know, like, and trust you beyond what you can just do with your words. Because as we all know, actions speak louder than words. So before you tune out today, don't forget to share it with somebody who you think will find this helpful. Let us know in the comments, what are some of the things you do to build rapport non-verbally? I'd love to hear from you. And if you've got any suggestions for other topics, then send us a message and we'd love to hear and have a go at doing those topics as well. Till next time, I'm Tarun Stevenson for Lead, Communicate, Grow. Take it easy.